vildagliptin plus metformin extended release. So diabetes. So an individual with a compromised lifestyle. We often know that diabetes is a multifactorial and patients often have a diabetic patient multiple complications and often their lifestyle gets compromised because of the various factors involved in it. So worldwide by the data which is available in 2015, 415 million people were suffering from diabetes and it is estimated that by 2040 642 million people will be suffering from diabetes. And as you can see from the world map, the hub is in Southeast Asia and Western Pacific, which is accounting for the major number of cases all over the world. So diabetes is one of the largest health emergencies of 21st century and thus the highest risk factor for premature mortality as per the World Health Organization. So where does the India stands? As we all know, India is a capital of diabetes. So this is a data top 10 countries for the number of adults with diabetes. So after China, we are at number second, and after followed by the United States of America and so on. And top 10 countries for diabetes related health expenditure. Here, India is not even in the top 10. So research in 2004, almost 16, 17 years back, forecast Indian diabetic population to reach 80 million by the 2030. However, it has reached 60 million in 2011 itself. So diabetic population in India. So this is a data from Indian Council of Medical Research, India B study done in 2011, where 62.4, almost 63 million people were suffering from diabetes, and even more than those people, that is 77.2 million people, were having pre-diabetes. So globally, dyslipidemia is a widespread condition in diabetics. We often call it diabetic dyslipidemia. And diabetes often has a correlation with hypertension, diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, diabetes plus dyslipidemia. But alone diabetes is only and only seen 10% of the population. So this is a very interesting diagram that diabetes is often associated with number of complications. It may be in the form of hypertension, it may be dyslipidemia, or it may be other complications which are even not mentioned. It may be peripheral neuropathy, it may be chronic kidney disease. So what are incretins? Because our top talk for today is going to revolve around this topic, that how DPP4 acts, what is their advantages, how they are acting in diabetic patient. So a hormone that stimulates insulin secretion in response to meals. GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide. Why GLP-1? We have another class of agent despite other than DPP4, that is GLP-1 analogs. GIP, glucose dependent insulotropic polypeptide. These hormones are secreted from the enteroendocrine cells, which are present in various parts of our body. So, where are endocrine cells? So, this is a pictorial representation where you can see how they are located in the various walls of our intestine and various parts of our intestinal system. So, as you can see, location in stomach, in small intestine, pancreas, large intestine, and various parts, whether proximal small intestine. So, we are going to focus here on these types, that is K cell types and L cell types, because from diabetes point of view, from DPP4 point of view, these are more important and these are present in the proximal small intestine and distal small intestine, and their principal effects are stimulation of insulin release, stimulation of carbohydrate uptake, slowing of intestinal transit, appetite regulation, and insulin release. And all these principal effects ultimately are responsible for their mechanism of action. So, functions of GLP-1, what are their after getting released, what they are doing? Acting over the various body organs. Most important, pancreas, leading on to the insulin secretion, decreased glucagon secretion, increased insulin biosynthesis, increased beta cell proliferation, and decreased beta cell apoptosis. So this is very important. They are overall helping in the preservation of beta cell by decreasing apoptosis and promoting the proliferation of beta cell, because we all know that as the duration of diabetes increases, the beta cell mass decreases, ultimately leading on to the insulin sensitivity. While acting over the muscles, they increase the glucose uptake and storage by muscles and adipose tissue. In liver, they decrease the glucose production by liver. They have cardioprotection, increase cardiac function. Acting over the stomach, they decrease the gastric emptying, and brain, they have neuroprotective and decrease the appetite. Because in some diabetic patient, we see that the increased appetite is responsible for the postprandial peak. So they are somewhere decreasing the appetite also. So glucose uptake, this is a pathophysiological diagram representing how the insulin is acting on insulin receptor and acting at various molecular pathways leading on to the glucose uptake by our body at various organs. So insulin binds to its receptor, starts many protein cascade, that is MAP kinase signaling pathway, PI3K signaling pathway, glycogen synthesis, and this includes translocation of GLUT4 receptors. We used to read these GLUT4 receptors during our MBBS first year in the biochemistry classes. Influx of glucose and glycolysis. So this is very pictorial diagram representing all that. So now this slide is showing how we diagnose type 2 diabetes, or you can say diabetes mellitus. So I think most of us will be aware of this: fasting more than or equal to 126, 2-hour glucose following ingestion of 75 more than or equal to 200, and similarly random more than 2, and HbA1c of more than or equal to 6.5. Fasting state is defined as no caloric intake for at least 8 hours before getting the test done. And HbA1c test should be performed in a NGSP certified lab. 2-hour postprandial glucose should be performed using a glucose load containing 70 gram of anhydrous glucose. And similarly, 100 to 125 is pre-diabetes in fasting state, and 140 to 199 in the 2-hour PP. So now the most important part of diabetic patient is management of the diabetes, how we are going to manage. So first thing, whenever a diabetic patient comes to us is MNT, that is medical nutrition therapy, which includes dietary measures, which includes lifestyle, which includes exercise, and counseling of the patient, how to take the lifestyle measures or the changes he can or she can bring up in her lifestyle to control her blood sugar level and prevent the complication. Then, as the disease progresses at each step, if the targets of HbA1c of 7 are not met, we consider addition of drugs. First line maybe metformin, then we can go on to sulfonylurea or DPP4 inhibitors or alpha glucosidase inhibitor, or I think SGLT2 inhibitors are not mentioned in this slide. So they are also considered, as well as GLP-1 inhibitors. Then third line, after there is a failure of these agents, we can add a basal insulin or pre-mix insulin, depending upon the underlying condition or underlying comorbid conditions and the HbA1c levels of patient. And often multiple drugs can be used, even mix of OHA as well as injectable therapy. So now where does the metformin fit in all this therapy? As we all know that metformin is a first line recommendation for diabetes unless and until it is contraindicated. So how metformin is acting? Decreases the hepatic glucose production, that is gluconeogenesis from liver, improves insulin sensitivity by increasing peripheral glucose uptake and utilization of glucose, reduces fasting plasma glucose levels. So overall metformin decreases gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis in liver. So it is acting at liver as well as at the peripheral glucose uptake, increasing it and also improving our insulin sensitivity. So now next is vildagliptin. How we are going to fit it in the management of type 2 diabetes. So the recommended daily dose of Vilda is 100 milligram administered as a 50 milligram BD. So mechanism of action, it is basically how the all DPP4 inhibitors act. When we ingest a food, it goes into gastrointestinal tract. There is a release of active incretins, GLP-1 and GIP, that is gastrointestinal peptide, which I discussed in the very beginning of our talk. Then further acting on the alpha and beta cells of pancreas, increased insulin, which is glucose dependent release, glucose uptake by peripheral tissues is increased, decrease glucagon, which is again glucose dependent, and decrease glucose production. So these are the various mechanism of action, how the vildagliptin is acting at the various levels, and ultimately leading on to the control of blood glucose in fasting as well as postprandial state. So this is where DPP4 enzyme very beautifully represented is inhibiting it. Inactive and inactive GIP, vildagliptin. So DPP4 enzyme, that is dipeptidyl peptidase 4, it is a member of large family of proteases. It is found in S2, S1. These are the various subunits of this enzyme. Mainly S1 and S2 are important from our point of view, mainly present in small and large intestine. PCT, that is the proximal convoluted tubules in kidney, liver, hepatocytes. Structure and function. This is important because then only we will come to know how it is acting. So, key interaction between phenyl ring, as you can see on the parazole, or as to extensive subsite of DPP4. Strong covalent bonding. Basically, there is a covalent bonding with the extensive subunit of DPP4 enzyme, enhance potency of drug and increasing its selectivity. So this is the pharmacokinetics of vildagliptin, bioavailability, what is Cmax, what is the Tmax half-life, distribution to plasma, and primarily metabolized by kidney. This is important for us that it is primarily metabolized by kidney, because whenever there is a EGFR reduction, we need to adjust the dose as per the underlying condition. 85% urinary excretion and only 50% in the feces. Dosage 100 milligram maximum, not more than that. So pharmacological characteristics of various DPP4 inhibitors. So this is a very, I think if we want to understand all the DPP4 inhibitors, the single chart can help us understand all. A very good comparison have been done of vildagliptin with Sexa, Lina, Allo, Tani, sitagliptin. So I think what I would like to highlight here is from clinical point of view, Sexagliptin we are using not using these days because of the cardiac safety issues, increased risk of heart failure associated with it. And even teneligliptin has issues like cardiac safety, QT prolongation, and moreover cardiovascular data is not available. Sitagliptin is another TBP4 available, and another is vildagliptin. So there is a very beautiful comparison. Different types of dosages are available for different agents which we can use. So it can be used as a monotherapy or with metformin or with thiazolidinone, that is pioglitazone, plus metformin plus sulfonylurea plus insulin. So basically we can use it in multiple agents. It may be oral, it may be injectable. Recommended dose 100 milligram administered as a 50 BD. When used in dual combination with sulfonylurea, the recommended dose of Vilda is 50 milligram OD administered in the morning. So in this patient population, when the patients who are on sulfonylurea, vildagliptin 100 milligram daily was not more effective than vildagliptin 50 milligram once daily. So this is a very important catch here, that when the patient is on sulfonylurea, maybe glimepiride, maybe gliclazide or any other, so even 50 milligram of dose is as effective as 100 milligram daily. And similarly, in elderly population above 65, no dosage adjustment are necessarily for vildagliptin, but definitely we need to adjust the dose depending upon the kidney function, depending upon the creatinine clearance, that is the EGFR, because no dosage adjustment needed if EGFR is over and above 50. But in patients who are in moderate or severe or who have EGFR below 50, we need to decrease the dose to 50 milligram once daily. In liver patients, it should not be used, including patients with pre-treatment ALT or AST more than the 3 times the upper limit of normal. So this is a very important point here, that we need to adjust the dosage of vildagliptin in renal impairment, and preferably should be avoided in patients with hepatic impairment. Although if we go into details of further, there is further classification depending upon the child pool classification. So in B and C, it should be absolutely avoided, while in A child book class A, we can use it with 50 milligram daily. So again, dosage adjustment depending upon the renal function. I think, as I have discussed, that when there is moderate or severe, we need to decrease the dose to 50 milligram OD. So it is contraindication with all any patient with non-hypersensitivity to vildagliptin, diabetic ketoacidosis, and type 1 diabetes. Use in pregnancy and lactation. Not data available. Warning and precaution. It is not a substitute for insulin in insulin requiring patient. So we all know that any drug, it is not only for vildagliptin. In any diabetic patient who needs insulin, who is insulin deficient, he needs insulin only. No other OHA can replace insulin. Patients who develop jaundice or other signs of liver dysfunction should discontinue vildagliptin as I highlighted before. Following withdrawal of treatment with vildagliptin and LFT normalization, treatment with vildagliptin should not be reinitiated. And if pancreatitis is suspected, vildagliptin should be discontinued. And even we have seen very few cases, not only with vildagliptin, with as a general class with DPP-4, that in patients who have once developed pancreatitis or who have history, such drugs should be avoided in such population. So now coming on to the drug interactions vildagliptin has. So basically, it has low potential for interaction with other co-administered medicinal products. There may be increased risk of angioedema if taken with ACE inhibitors. I have never seen any such drug interaction. Hypoglycemic effect may be reduced by certain active substances like thiazide, corticosteroids, thyroid production, sympathomimetics. So now coming on to the clinical evidences which are in the favor of vildagliptin as a monotherapy. So these are the various trials that where efficacy of vildagliptin in patients with type 2 diabetes was compared various randomized double-blind controlled trial from various countries. It is not only from one country, it's data from multiple countries with multiple ethnicity of patients. Various type of agents have been used, comparison with metformin, comparison with gliclazide, and long studies, as you can see, over a period of 104 weeks, which accounts for 2 years. Comparison with alpha glucosidase inhibitors, with acarbose, with voglibose. So basically, mean change from baseline is almost similar. So it is as good as other agents. In fact, in some cases, it is superior to the other agents. So now, in combination with metformin, again, this is a data from various randomized controlled trials where it has shown that it is quite superior in reduction of HbA1c. Obviously, it depends upon the baseline HbA1c. The reduction of HbA1c you get in any diabetic patient depends upon the baseline HbA1c. So again, this is now comparison here they have done with now sulfonylurea or in combination with pioglitazone. Again here it has shown its superiority in reduction the HbA1c. Various long studies of 1 year, 2 years, even in few cases you can see even 30 milligram of pioglitazone has been used in combination with metformin. So overall, basically crux of these slide is that it can be used as a monotherapy, it can be used as an add-on therapy, it can be used as a uh, agent with number of other agents, maybe of any class, maybe sulfonylurea, maybe thiazolidinediones, maybe insulin, maybe metformin. So number of agents it can be used with. So as an add-on therapy. So efficacy of combination therapy, vildagliptin plus pioglitazone. I think glimepiride plus pioglitazone or glimepiride plus vildagliptin. So I think this is what I'm talking about. That it has shown its efficacy over all these agents and over with all these agents. These all are multi-central trials, randomized RCT moreover, which are one of the best trials considered in medical literature, done over 12 weeks, 24 weeks, and 12 months duration, which is almost 1 year. So now efficacy of vildagliptin added to insulin. So even trials have been done where it has been added on to insulin and it has shown its superiority. That is the mean change from baseline. Again, depending upon the baseline, it has shown that it is quite effective agent even in when used in combination with insulin. So now coming on to the special population here, basically we are going to discuss the patients who are having renal impairment. It may be moderate or severe renal impairment. So these are the results of RCT, randomized double-blind multi-center study. Follow up at 24 weeks or 54 weeks. As you can see, few patients are having moderate degree of renal impairment and few patients are having severe degree. So it has shown its efficacy even in such patients, but obviously the most important part is that you need to adjust the dose in such patients who are having moderate or severe renal impairment, or in general you can say the patients who are having EGFR of less than 50. So again, now another trial when vildagliptin used as a monotherapy in elderly patients, patients who were above 65 years. So randomized controlled trial. Again, you can see efficacy have been even proven in such patients also, and there were less risk of hypoglycemia seen in such patients. So now the verified trial, which is the most recent trial, and often we have done number of meetings on this verified trial. Early combination therapy was standard of care. So basically what they have highlighted in this trial is it was done to determine the durability of glycemic control with early treatment with vildagliptin metformin combination versus standard of care metformin monotherapy. That is, either we should initiate the combination vilda plus metformin, or we should initiate with metformin and add on vildagliptin when there is a failure of metformin. So it was the first study to investigate the long-term clinical benefits of early combination treatment versus the standard of care metformin monotherapy with a second agent added by the threshold criteria. So this was a verified trial study design. As I told you, in the period one, few patients were on combination of 50 milligram BD Vilda plus 100,000 milligram metformin BD plus fewer on metformin 1000 milligram BD. So in such patients who were on only alone metformin, there was earlier failure of the therapy of metformin, while the patients who were on combination therapy, they were better maintained over long time of period. So primary aim was to determine whether early combination with metformin or vildagliptin will result in better durability of glycemic control than metformin monotherapy. And even in the period 3, what we see in patients who were on combination therapy failed even later on in those patients who were added up the vildagliptin after failure of metformin. So this is a against study design pictorial representation time to treatment failure. So basically crux is that earlier the combination therapy is better as per this trial. So what subgroup analysis for the time to initial treatment failure revealed a consistently significant benefit of early combination treatment. That is, the initially if we are adding two agents, it is better than monotherapy for the primary outcome as well as for the secondary outcome. So what were the key findings? So early combination treatment half the risk of time to initial treatment failure versus monotherapy. So median time to failure was 3 years in the initial monotherapy strategy as compared to 5 years. So difference of 2 years when the combination therapy failed and when the monotherapy failed. When all patients were receiving combination therapy, the risk for time to second treatment failure was reduced by 26%, which is again a significant number. So although both approaches were safe and well tolerated, the strategy of early combination treatment approach with Vilda plus metformin in patients with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes significantly and consistently improves long-term glycemic durability compared with metformin alone. So now what is vildagliptin's place in current therapy? So it is approved. So what are the dosages? Monotherapy in patients inadequately controlled by diet and exercise, for whom metformin is not tolerated or contraindicated, even as a dual therapy with metformin in patients with insufficient glycemic control with metformin, as a dual combination with sulfonylurea, as a dual combination with thiazolidinediones, as a triple drug therapy we can use in combination with insulin. So these are the various things I have already discussed, that it can be used with various class of agents and with various oral agents as well as with the even injectable therapy, that is with insulin also. So proved indications for Vilda again same thing, patients unable to achieve sufficient glycemic control at the maximum tolerated dose of metformin alone, starting dose 50 milligram BLD plus metformin already. So I think this is the same thing has been highlighted again here, that it can be used in variety of combination, 50 by 500, 50 by 850, 50 by 1000. So now main thing is, because here the catch for today's topic is that extended release formulation of metformin. What advantage it is going to give over the normal immediate release metformin? How it is going to be benefit for patient? And what are the advantages patient will have with this rationale? As we all know, there will be less gastrointestinal disturbances with extended release formulation. We can adjust the dosage, we can increase the convenience of patient and improve the compliance of patient. So the principal tolerability issue with the immediate release metformin arises in GI and gastrointestinal side effects occur in approximately 20 to 30% of the patient. Yes, we all know that. And whenever we are initiating a metformin, we often advise that there can be a few side effects. There may be acid peptic disease, there may be diarrhea, a few patients report constipation. So these are very common side effects. So the gastrointestinal intolerance, often associated with rapid titration and high dose initiation of metformin therapy, remains a practical issue to be addressed by taking the agent with meals and reducing the rate of dose escalation or transferred to a prolonged release formulation. So this is again very important, that extended release will help to overcome these side effects. So this is a figure representing the incidence of GI adverse effects in a 14-week double-blind randomized parallel group trial in 451 lean or overweight type 2 diabetic patients with hyperglycemic despite treatment with diet and exercise. The pink is representing gastrointestinal side effects and gray is representing any, and the red is representing withdraw for gastrointestinal side effects. So as you can see, majority of the chart is representing gastrointestinal side effects which are associated with the immediate formulation of metformin from the overall side effects which are represented in the, and this side effects can ultimately lead to the withdrawal of drug even. So multi-drug and toxin extrogen protein gene polymorphism and therapeutic effects of metformin in type 2 diabetes mellitus Egypt. So this is a study from Egypt published in Journal of Applied Medical Sciences volume 3 in 2014. So they have also highlighted here the concept of XR formulation, the optimal dosing strategy for maximizing the clinical response in type 2 diabetic patient. So glycemic benefits of 2 gram per day. So higher doses of metformin reduces only 0.26%, which is not statistically significant. So this is very important, that even by increasing the metformin to a very high dose is not going to give us a much advantage. Just 0.26% HbA1c reduction, which is not significant. So now XR rationale. So third point which I highlighted at the talk is the compliance. When we are giving a XR formulation, there is a better compliance because we can use it for once daily dose, because immediate release we might need to use it twice or thrice. So with the once daily dosage, we can have a better compliance. The number of pills patient is taking is reduced and patient is better adherent to the treatment. So overall compliance of patient is improved and we can achieve a better HbA1c goal with it. So patients started on metformin XR diagnosis tolerated over 12 months. So this is very beautiful slide again. You can see in the extended release formulation the number of side effects. Any GI side effects, maybe diarrhea, nausea, dyspepsia, flatulence, constipation, abdominal pain, abdominal distension was less as compared to the immediate release. So now switching over to metformin extended release improves adherence in routine general practice. So dosing schedule will remain standard. We give usually 500 in the breakfast or 500 in the dinner or even in the lunch, or even we can give thousand BD dose, but with extended this formulation, we can titrate it only to once daily dose. Once a time we can adjust it at one time of the meal only. So what are the contraindications? I think most of us are aware of this: severe renal dysfunction, severe liver disease, use of IV contrast media, major surgical procedures, congestive heart failure, history of alcohol abuse. So now this is the most important slide of use of metformin, that whenever we are initiating metformin, we need to know the EGFR levels of the patient. Above 60, there is no need to adjust dose. But if it is between 60 and 45, we need to monitoring of renal function every 3 to 6 months. And when it is between 45 to 30, we need to reduce the dose, or you can say maximum of, I think, 1000 milligram of metformin we can use in such category. But if it falls below 30, that is stage 4 CKD, we need to stop the metformin. So now summary of the key points. So take home message from all the discussion what we have today is vildagliptin suppresses 95% of DPP4 throughout activity, 24-hour dose interval when given in a dose of 100 milligram, and 80% suppression when given in dose of 50 milligram BD. So it is considered to lipid neutral, reflects prolonged overnight elevation in GLP-1 level, results in prolonged suppression of glucagon and hepatic glucose production, increases GLP-1 levels, resulting in enhanced sensitivity of beta cells to glucose and improved glucose-dependent insulin secretion. Increases GLP-1 also enhanced alpha cell sensitivity to glucose, leading to suppression of postprandial glucagon secretion, significant reduction in total cholesterol. Moreover, I think the point missing is it is a weight neutral agent and it is a very low risk of hypoglycemia. Most important points.
रिटर्न उसका ज्यादा है
Also reduce the rate of lipolysis in fasting state. I think this is all we have discussed. It exhibits no major clinical relevant DDI compared to other agents in patients with type 2. Improved endothelial dependent vasodilatation, retinal microvascular blood flow, reduced carotid intima media thickness, did not damage the protective mechanism of ischemic preconditioning in patients with type 2 and symptomatic CAD, may be least harmful among all the DPP4 with regard to risk of heart failure, did not alter the satiation or gastric volume in patients with type 2 diabetes or even healthy volunteers. So I think these all are important points. So now vildagliptin plus metformin extended release combination will ultimately lead on to better glycemic control, long-term glycemic durability, benefits on lipid profile, benefits in weight reduction, minimal chances of hypoglycemia, minimal chances of side effects, minimal chances of gastrointestinal upset, and better patient compliance, and most important, once daily dosing. Thank you. Thank you for your patience listening. Now this session is uh, open for discussion.
Thank you, sir. It was a beautiful session that you've taken today. I'm sure that your slides and your experience has gained a lot of insights to the attending crowd, and also has minimized the possibilities of any kind of questions that they must have already have. But I would still look in for if there is any questions that has come in the chat box, and if there is any, we can have the discussions further. I would request Aarti to share the questions if there are any.
Sir, right now there are no questions. We can wait for 2 minutes for questions. So attendees can put their questions in the chat box.
Perfect. Sure. Sir, until then, I would like to ask you, if you permit me to ask you a few
Yeah,
questions,
yeah,
sir.
sure.
Sir, today, if you see, if you actually see the combination of vildagliptin with sustained release metformin, I mean, most when we were in the company, in the office, we were discussing about the same thing as to how and where it can be positioned, who would be the right candidate, who would have this as their combination of choice, as well as the formulation of choice. So anything that you can share your experience of.
See, I think the patients who are reluctant to take two dosages of 500, or the patients who are exhibiting side effects to the immediate release metformin, so they are the right candidates in whom we can use the extended release formulation, minimizing the side effects and improving the compliance of patients. So in such candidates, it should be initiated. Even I think we can use even a extended release we are using in BD dosage, even in the normal population also who are on immediate release, we can use in the BD dose. It will ultimately lead on to the uh, better control of blood glucose level, maybe fasting, maybe postprandial. So overall, in all sorts of patients, we can initiate the drug.
Sure, great, sir. Sir, and I just want to understand, like, how often do you have patients who are intolerant or maybe having lot of side effects leading to discontinuations because of metformin, either on a lighter or a heavier dosages, sir?
I think 20 to 30% of the patients often have intolerance to metformin, and it is
Okay.
very common in clinical practice, because in few patients who are on the higher doses, let us say on 2000 milligram of metformin, so we need to reduce the dose to 1000 milligram, then they are able to adjust, and even if they are still not able to adjust, then we might need to take it off completely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So these would be the right candidates for this kind of a formulation.
Yes, yes.
Lovely, sir. Sir, and as per this latest trial that has come up, that is the verified trial where
Hmm.
vildagliptin and metformin is recommended to be started, early, as well as because of its long glycemic durability. So,
Hmm.
how often have you, encountered such kind of patients who have literally have a, good glycemic durability because of early initiation, sir?
See, if HbA1c is more than 7, so I always prefer to initiate with two agents,
Right, sir.
and because it ultimately leads on to the better control. And secondly, as indicated or highlighted in the verified trial, there is less chances of the failure, because with metformin alone we have the high failure incidences, while it was not seen in the arm in which there was the usage of vildagliptin plus metformin combination.
Right. Sure, I think that would be somewhere where even so. What I would suggest is what I would rather summarize is what I got is you can start metformin and vildagliptin together whenever you find a HbA1c more than 7 and continue it for long. In rather start it with an SR combination because SR combination will give him a better tolerability, and
Yes,
vildagliptin and combination will have a longer glycemic durability, so which
yes,
is like an ideal match for any patients right now to to have a longer steadier control on diabetes.
yeah, yeah, yes,
That's great,
exactly.
sir. So I'm just opening up a few questions that we have received, sir. Just give me a minute. It's I think the questions that I can see are most of which I have already discussed, and you have already, we have already summarized them. So I believe there are no further questions that I see
Hmm.
in the chat box, something
Hmm.
different than what we have already discussed.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think, sir, that gives an opportunity for me to tell you that your presentation had everything which is required by the audience, and
Hmm.
hence no separate questions have been asked differently than what is included in the deck. So
Yeah,
that's a great thing for any speaker today to understand. So congratulations, sir, on that, and thank you, sir, for spending your time and enlightening us on this topic. It was a great experience listening to you, sir. Thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir. So can I end the meeting, sir?
You can end the meeting. You have the recording, right?
Yeah, right, sir.
So what you can do is afterwards download and give us. And how do we know how many people other than the speaker link were present?
Yeah, from the attendees link, we can see, and sir, I can send attendees report on your mail ID.
Yeah, but Aarti, hello.
Yes, sir.
See, at the time of start also you should give this continuously in between, at least 2 to 3 times in between. You should give SMS to concerned person how many attendees are there. That is possible, because we are unable to see. We won't come to know how many are there.
Yeah, sir. It is possible. Just a minute.
Is it possible?
Yeah, it is possible, they say.
Because
Yes,
to
sir, it
start
is possible. Yeah, but sometime to avoid disturbance, we are not sending attendees number.
No, you have
I
to just
can
oral
send.
SMS, WhatsApp. You can WhatsApp Priyanka for Wildamat,
Yeah, I
or
can.
maybe for
Yeah,
Rajan,
I can send personal.
any of them, or in 3 or 4 of us. So we know, because we were not able to see. So that's why I was delaying the webinar. We were not knowing how many are there in the lineup. Correct,
Okay,
no?
sir, no problem. I
That
can
way we
send
can start
every.
also. It will be easy for us to start.
Yeah.
Yes, 10, 12 doctors are there. We can start. And in between, probably other people can join. So at least 2 to 3 times you give us SMS, like how many are there at the start, in the middle, and probably by the end. And then you can give the details later on.
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir. From the next time, I will be update attendees.
Yeah.
આજે જ આપણે 6 વાગે મીટિંગ છે, રાઈટ?
Yes, sir.
હા, તો એના લેન્ડિંગ પેજમાં પણ કંઈક મિસ્ટેક્સ છે જે રાજનભાઈ તમને મેસેજ કરશે અથવા વિશાલને મેસેજ કરશે.
Okay, sir.
અને આનું તમે મને અટેન્ડી લિસ્ટ આપી દો. મોનિકને કહી દીધું છે.
Okay, sir. તો હું attendance report send કરી દઉં છું.
રાઈટ.
Okay, thank you, sir. So
Will do,
I am
will do.
ending this
Will
meeting.
do.